When a narcissist loses control over someone they once manipulated, it feels like a personal crisis to them. Not just a loss but a collapse of their fragile identity. Their power is rooted in domination, validation, and control. When you walk away, set boundaries, or simply stop reacting, it triggers a deep panic within them. They don't see it as you taking care of yourself or protecting your peace. They see it as betrayal, defiance, and most of all, a loss of supply. And for a narcissist, losing supply, that constant stream of attention, admiration, or emotional chaos, is terrifying. This is why they become so furious when they realize they've lost control of you. That fury isn't just emotional, it's existential. You represented a mirror that they needed to see themselves as powerful, wanted, superior. Without that mirror, their false sense of self begins to crack. Narcissists often react to this loss of control with rage, manipulation, or attempts to sabotage your progress. They might try to guilt-trip you, spread lies, or suddenly play the victim to pull you back in. But when you no longer respond to those tactics, when their words no longer confuse you or make you question your worth, they feel powerless. For a narcissist, this is a form of punishment worse than anything external. It's the realization that their grip on you has been severed. What's even more painful for them is seeing you thrive without them. Your peace, your joy, your healing. All of that sends a message they can't, ignoring they didn't break you. This is where karma, or divine justice, often comes into play. Whether you see it as God's punishment or the natural consequences of their actions, narcissists who harm others repeatedly often find themselves facing the very chaos they inflicted. Relationships fall apart, people stop trusting them, their masks start slipping in places they can't control. What they built on lies and control begins to collapse. And it's not because you wished harm upon them. It's because they sowed seeds of destruction in other people's lives, and now they're reaping that harvest. The universe has a way of restoring balance, even if it takes time. While you are focused on healing, evolving, and rebuilding your life, their world becomes increasingly unstable, chaotic, and empty. But the most powerful shift isn't just what happens to them. It's what happens to you. You stop living in survival mode. You stop second-guessing yourself. You stop shrinking to make someone else feel big. You step into your strength, your clarity, and your truth. And in doing so, you become someone they can no longer manipulate, predict, or control. That is the real punishment for the narcissist. Not fire from the sky, but the silence of your indifference, the power of your boundaries, and the peace they can no longer touch. Their attempts to provoke you fall flat. Their lies don't hold weight. Their presence no longer carries fear. And that emotional detachment, that calm refusal to engage, is what crushes them inside. In the end, your healing is the greatest justice, because not only did you survive what was meant to destroy you, you came out stronger, wiser, and more self-aware. That's the part they never expected. That's the outcome they couldn't control. And that's why they're truly furious. When a narcissist loses control over someone they once manipulated, it's not just a simple loss. It's an ego collapse. Control is the foundation of how a narcissist maintains their sense of power and importance. The moment you begin to detach, set boundaries, or walk away, it disrupts the illusion they've built around themselves. That they are in charge, that you need them, and that your life revolves around their approval. What many people don't realize is that narcissists don't want connection, they want control. They don't love in the way others do, they possess. So when that possession slips away, it feels like a threat to their identity. Your strength, your silence, your refusal to engage in the games they used to play, all of that is deeply unsettling to them. It challenges the narrative they've created, not just about you, but about themselves. And because they rely on others to reflect back a false sense of superiority, when that reflection disappears, they're left with nothing but their own emptiness. That's when the fury comes. They may try to guilt-trip you, bait you into arguments, use flying monkeys to gather information or turn others against you, or even suddenly act sweet and apologetic. These aren't genuine attempts to make amends, they're tactics, designed to pull you back into the cycle, to make you question yourself again, to re-establish their control. But if you've truly started healing and seeing through the manipulation, none of it works anymore. You stop explaining yourself. You stop engaging in arguments that go in circles. You stop feeling responsible for their emotions. And that's what truly enrages them. The loss of emotional access. They're no longer able to push your buttons and get the reaction they crave. This is when their behavior can become more desperate or vindictive, because they realize you're not playing their game anymore. But ironically, the more they try to provoke you and fail, the more powerless they feel. At the same time, while you're rising, they're falling, and often in ways they can't control or hide. This is where the concept of karma, or divine justice, begins to unfold. It may not always come in dramatic or visible ways, but it always shows up. Narcissists often create destruction in their waking, broken reputations, lies that eventually catch up with them. And because they believe they are above consequences, they rarely take responsibility or self-correct. Instead, they repeat the same patterns with new people until one day those patterns stop working. People stop trusting them. They lose jobs, opportunities, respect, not because someone cursed them, but because they built their life on manipulation, and foundations like that always crumble eventually. The truth comes out, masks slip, and when there's no one left to blame, they're left to sit with the very emptiness they've spent their lives trying to avoid. Meanwhile, you're not the same person they once knew. You're not reacting out of fear or confusion anymore. You're responding, or not responding at all, from a place of clarity. You've begun to reclaim your voice, your peace, your time, your energy. You've stopped trying to fix or explain, and you've started to live for yourself. That evolution, that inner shift is more powerful than any punish someone else could give them. Because narcissists don't understand real love, but they do understand power. And when they see that the power they once held over you is gone, completely and permanently, it shakes them to their core. When a narcissist realizes they've lost control over you, it hits them harder than most people would imagine. Their entire sense of power and identity is often built on manipulating others, especially those closest to them. You may have once given them attention, validation, emotional reactions, or even constant forgiveness, all things they used to feed their ego. But once you start to heal and see through their behavior, that supply begins to dry up. You stop chasing their approval, stop reacting to their provocations, and most importantly, stop giving them the emotional energy they once depended on. That shift leaves them feeling exposed and powerless. It's not just about you walking away. It's about them being forced to face the fact that they're no longer the center of your world, and that realization shatters the illusion of control they worked so hard to maintain. The rage that follows is often intense because narcissists don't know how to process rejection or loss in a healthy way. Instead of self-reflection, they look for someone to blame. If you've cut ties or stopped engaging, they might lash out in subtle or overt ways. Smear campaigns, guilt, playing the victim, or attempting to manipulate mutual friends or family members to turn against you. But the truth is that anger comes from fear. Fear of being irrelevant. Fear of losing their influence. Fear of no longer being able to control the narrative. And deep down, they're angry that you've taken back your power, because your strength reminds them of their own weakness. It reminds them that they were never as in control as they believed, and nothing threatens a narcissist more than seeing someone they once manipulated rise above the chaos. While you continue to grow and find peace, they often begin to experience the consequences of their own actions. This is where karma or divine justice comes into play. Narcissists live in patterns. They repeat the same behaviors with new people, believing they're untouchable. But those patterns eventually lead to destruction. The lies catch up to them. The relationships they tried to maintain through control begin to fall apart. Their manipulations become more obvious, and fewer people are willing to tolerate their games. Sometimes they face public embarrassment, lose respect, or find themselves isolated, not because anyone is actively punishing them, but because they've built their lives on deception and control. And over time that foundation always crumbles. They may pretend everything is fine on the outside, but internally, they begin to unravel. Their world becomes smaller, colder, and more unstable, all while you're rebuilding yours on truth, clarity, and self-respect. You, on the other hand, are no longer trapped in survival mode. The emotional fog has lifted. You start seeing your worth without needing someone else's validation. You stop justifying your boundaries or feeling guilty for protecting your peace. That personal growth, quiet, steady, and grounded, is something they can't take credit for, and that alone can be infuriating to a narcissist. Because the final truth is this: their real punishment isn't some dramatic downfall. It's knowing they no longer matter in the life of someone they once controlled. Your indifference is the loudest silence they'll ever hear, and as their influence fades, and your power rises, the shift is undeniable. You've moved on, you've healed, and they're stuck exactly where they've always been. In the cycle they tried to trap you in but couldn't. When a narcissist realizes they've lost control over you, it shakes them to their core. Control is everything to them. It's not about love, connection, or understanding. It's about dominance and manipulation. Once you stop reacting, stop explaining yourself, or finally walk away, it signals to them that the game is over. And to a narcissist, that's unbearable. Your emotional reactions used to feed their ego. Your confusion gave them power. Your willingness to always come back gave them reassurance that they were still in control. But the moment you see them for who they truly are and decide not to play the role they assigned you anymore, they're left with nothing to hold on to. That's when the mask begins to slip, and their true frustration surfaces. They're no longer able to extract the emotional supply they once relied on, and it leaves them feeling powerless, irrelevant, and exposed. That loss of control quickly turns into rage. Narcissistic rage isn't just anger, it's a deep, intense reaction to feeling threatened or humiliated. They can't process accountability or loss the way emotionally healthy people do. Instead, they lash out, try to provoke you, or shift blame onto others. They may launch smear campaigns, try to ruin your reputation, or play the victim to mutual friends and family. These tactics are meant to pull you back in or punish you for daring to stand up for yourself. But the more you stay silent, grounded, and detached, the more they spiral. They don't know what to do with someone they can no longer manipulate. That loss of emotional access is one of the deepest blows to their ego, because it means they are no longer significant in your life. And for a narcissist, nothing feels worse than being irrelevant. Meanwhile, the universe, or simply the consequences of their actions, begins to catch up with them. You don't have to seek revenge or wish them harm. Life has a way of bringing balance, even if it's not always immediate. Narcissists often burn bridges, manipulate, and exploit people to get what they want. Eventually, those actions catch up, the lies stop working, people stop believing them, and their relationships begin to collapse, and their false image starts to crack. They may face personal losses, social isolation, or even financial or legal troubles. This isn't necessarily God punishing them, in a dramatic sense. It's simply the reality of a life built on deception and control. What they projected outward no longer protects them, and the truth begins to surface in ways they can't manage or hide. What once worked so easily now fails, and they have no one left to blame but themselves. As this unfolds, your healing journey becomes a powerful contrast. You're no longer in survival mode. You're learning, growing, and finding peace. Where they are stuck in patterns, you are breaking free from them. That transformation is something they can't touch, and it reminds them that you've become someone stronger without them. Your silence becomes louder than words. Your peace becomes proof that their chaos didn't destroy you, and your ability to move forward, without anger, revenge, or obsession, is what truly defines your freedom. That's something no narcissist can ever control again. Their karma isn't just in what they lose, it's in watching you become untouchable, unavailable, and unbothered. The very things they feared most have come true. They lost gained clarity, and their influence is gone for good. When a narcissist loses control over someone they once manipulated, it deeply threatens their fragile sense of identity. Narcissists don't seek relationships for mutual growth or emotional connection. They seek control, admiration, and dominance. When you finally see through their lies, manipulation, and emotional games, and begin to reclaim your power, it shakes their entire foundation. They no longer feel superior, validated, or in charge. You becoming emotionally detached or walking away entirely sends a clear message. They are no longer in control of your mind, your emotions, or your life. That realization cuts deeper than anything, because for a narcissist, control is everything. Without it, they feel invisible and powerless. This loss of control doesn't result in quiet acceptance. Instead, it provokes narcissistic rage. Narcissists are incapable of processing rejection, accountability, or losing power in a healthy way. When their influence over you fades, they may lash out, play the victim, or double down on manipulation. They might launch smear campaigns, try to win over mutual friends or family, or use guilt and shame to pull you back in. These reactions aren't signs of love or regret. They're panic. Panic that their image is cracking. Panic that you're no longer emotionally invested. Panic that they can no longer use you to boost their ego or maintain their carefully crafted persona. And as you remain calm, distant, or completely indifferent, they unravel even more. The silence and boundaries you set feel like punishment to them, even if you're simply protecting your peace. As their attempts to regain control fail, they begin to experience the consequences of their actions. A form of karmic justice. This isn't always instant or dramatic, but it's real. Narcissists live in a loop of deception, control, and manipulation. Over time, the damage they've caused to others, and to themselves, adds up. They begin to lose relationships, respect, and credibility. Their tactics stop working because people start to see through them. Friends, coworkers, or partners they once emulated walk away or confront them. Their lives may look fine on the outside, but inside, they're often filled with frustration, isolation, and chaos. This is the karma they can't escape. Not necessarily because the universe is out to get them, but because their own patterns eventually destroy what they try so hard to control. While they're unraveling, you're rising. Your healing becomes your greatest protection and your quiet revenge. You're no longer trapped in confusion or self-doubt. You're learning how to trust yourself, set firm boundaries, and value your own voice. This inner transformation is powerful because it means the narcissist no longer holds emotional weight in your life. You don't need to explain yourself, defend your decisions, or seek closure from someone who never intended to give it. You find closure within, and that is something no narcissist can take away. Your peace, your clarity, and your emotional freedom are not only signs of healing, they're proof that their influence is gone for good. In the end, the narcissist's punishment is not some fiery downfall or dramatic moment of regret. It's having to live without the control they once took for granted. It's knowing that the person they tried to break is no longer within reach, and no longer playing their game, and no longer suffering under their influence. That's what truly destroys them. The realization that you've moved on, grown stronger, and become untouchable. The silence, the strength, and the peace you now embody are the very things they'll never be able to manipulate again. That's the real justice. That's the karma.